No product or experience is ever done. Don't ever reach a point at which we're like, okay, yeah, we've done all of the research, we've solved all the problems. This thing is as good as it can possibly be. That's never the case. It's always a moving target because user expectations and values and preferences are constantly changing.
I think AI products have absolutely amplified this idea that no product is ever finished. And what we're actually seeing is things are getting onto the market so quickly and with an experimental label, like watch out, with some caveats, that the users and the general consuming public are actually partners in co-creation. And I think that's super important actually, because if you have this transformational technology, it's change management 101 to make the people who are using the solution and who are impacted by the solution part of building the solution.
There's an inherent tension building a product that's supposed to evolve yet stay stable. And especially as we started leaning into design systems, because many design systems almost by function are conservative. They don't want you to do new things. And I think to some degree, companies can be held back if they look at the design system as a product in itself, rather than something that's supposed to serve the product. Because in the end, the design system is not the product. The product is the product, and the product needs to evolve. So there's a tension there with the product needing to evolve and a design system that is often conservative to some senses. And I think that's a good tension. And it creates the need to having discussions of like, we want to introduce this new pattern and we're going to do it. It might actually break the design system in terms of logic, but then we need to have a discussion of how do we create a new harmonious state where those rules actually make sense both in the product and in the design system. And I think it's just important to, when you have a design system, not see it as the rule book that can't be changed, but something that should be challenged, because the product needs to evolve. It needs to change, and that needs to propagate back into the design system at all times.
No product or experience is ever done. Don't ever reach a point at which we're like, okay, yeah, we've done all of the research, we've solved all the problems. This thing is as good as it can possibly be. That's never the case. It's always a moving target because user expectations and values and preferences are constantly changing. AI is a great example of this. We're already starting to see that people are having a preference towards AI-powered search, using AI systems to help them more easily and simply find the information that they're looking for. So there's always a moving target that we need to chase. Even if you get to the point where your product is really solid and the user value is there and your feedback is really great consistently, at that point you have a lot of refinements that you can make. There are the smaller things that are more about creating an overall experience that's truly seamless and best in class and defends you against any potential competitors.
So it's natural as systems age and as new features and new technologies get put onto them that some parts are going to be older compared to the newer parts of it. What I like to do is keep an eye on those parts of the experience that haven't been touched in a while to ensure that we don't forget about them, but also ensure that we have a clear design system and a clear design language that's brought into by all parts of the squad model who are working on that given product. Using shared components is particularly helpful as well. That way, if you need to add a new feature to the header, for example, it's a common component everywhere that the rest of the experience will pick up on. But as your experiences do get larger, you may find the need to every now and again do a bit more of a reset where you actually go back and reinvest. And that is just as important as building a new feature, that reinvestment to make that consistency, to focus on those ease of use and daily experiences for the user to ensure that they can move through your product effectively and find those features and use them well. Figuring out when to introduce a design system into your work is one of those age-old questions. There's no short and easy answer for it. If you are a small company, a startup, a single designer, or maybe even have a designer, My advice normally is to lean on one of the more established frameworks that already exists. They tend to be accessible anyway, they tend to understand responsive design, they tend to be pretty robust because they're worked on by a community of people. I think once you start to think about bringing more of your own personality or brand into an experience, that's when you want to start thinking about having some degree of design system. The way I've done it in the past, when I've been in much smaller teams, is when we start to feel the need to reuse a component, we'll write that down somewhere. We'll put that into a Figma file, or we'll talk to engineers about it. We'll gradually build up an organic kind of design system. And then we'll take a moment to pause as a group, evaluate it, see what makes sense, and then actually ensure that it is one-to-one code backed. That can be a difficult conversation to have with engineering and PM who want to get features out so they can sell more. But if you help them understand the longer-term promise of increased velocity, not only in design, but also in development, by being able to pull components out of a library rather than having to sit down and write from scratch every time, if you can solve that kind of argument, you'll be golden.